So welcome to panel Web3 in Europe, how will MiCA impact the industry? Our moderator will be Markova, Senior Digital Assets Expert at FTI Consulting. And we will have a pleasure to host Alexandre Stachtchenko, whom you already know from previous talks, Simon Polrot, co-founder of Adan, Martin Bruncko, Europe VP at Binance, and my dear colleague, Laura Chaput, with whom we work together in Keyrock Digital Assets Market Maker. Let's give them a round of applause. Good luck, guys.
All right. Hi, everybody. Hope you can hear me. Thanks for sticking around. It's positively tropical environment. I think the organizers really wanted us to feel like we're in Miami, so we're almost there. So yeah, indeed, my name is Markova. I'm with FTI Consulting, and we are an advocacy consultancy here in Brussels. Very happy to support Brussels Blockchain Week in their inaugural edition and going forward. I'll just ask my panelists to say just very shortly who you are and what you do within your companies before we kick off with the questions. Alex.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for being here. So I'm Alexandre Stachtchenko. I did a keynote this morning also, so sorry for repeating myself for those who were here. I am the co-founder of a startup that was called Blockchain Partner in 2015, so 7 years ago, that was doing consultancy, advisory, strategy, and expertise around crypto technologies. And since last year, we've been acquired by KPMG, so now I'm a director of blockchain and crypto at KPMG France, and I'm also, but Simon will talk more about that, I'm also co-founder of Adan, which is the association for French professionals around crypto technologies.
Hi everyone, my name is Laura Chaput, so I'm head of compliance at Keyrock. Keyrock is a Brussels-based company that was founded about 5 years ago, and we are market makers in digital assets. So we provide liquidity to exchanges and asset issuers.
Hi everyone, I'm Simon Polrot. I do crypto assets public policy advocacy. I was the co-founder of Adan and former president of Adan, the French Crypto Assets Association, and I'm now the president of European Crypto Initiative, Europe-based crypto advocacy structure.
Thank you. My name is Martin. I'm the head of Europe at Binance. For those of you who don't know, Binance is the largest crypto exchange and infrastructure provider in blockchain.
All right. Thanks, guys. So yeah, we have about half an hour to talk about regulation. Fascinating topic. We in the regulatory space are very big in our acronyms, but I'm not going to make an assumption that everybody else in the audience knows them, right? So MiCA up there on the title stands for Markets in Crypto Assets Regulation. In short, that's the EU's, that's the biggest regulation in crypto in the world at the moment. After it, everybody who issues a crypto asset or services around it in Europe will need to have a license and follow a whole bunch of rules. In addition to that, we have new rules coming around anti-money laundering, unhosted wallets. If you've heard about it, is the travel rule. So this is what we're dealing with. There's at the moment in the table, on the negotiating table in Europe, plus a number of topics coming on the regulatory horizon, so to speak. So our conversation today is going to be about what does that mean for businesses, for Europe, and for our industry. So let's start on that topic with Laura and Martin. Post MiCA, post all the travel rule changes, post everything that you can anticipate, what would that mean for Keyrock and for Binance, respectively? How would your business change? We'll start with Laura.
Hello. Yeah. So basically, once MiCA is going to be implemented, Keyrock will need to have a license on the MiCA. So it's a lot of work for the preparation. Indeed, we do have to think about a lot of the requirements and how we comply with these requirements, including like the governance arrangements, the controls to prevent market abuse, or everything linked to the internal control system. So yes, so it is a lot of work, and it's going to be a long journey, and we're not sure how long it's going to take to obtain that license. But yeah, it does have an impact on Keyrock and of course on the compliance team. That is a lot of a workload, but at the end it's very positive. And the vision at Keyrock from the start is that we embrace regulation. We want to be regulated. We want to have a clear legal framework, and we've always applied the rules, even though they were not applicable. So yeah, we believe it's going to be beneficial, and so yeah, it's a good for Europe.
Okay, Martin.
So for us, not much will change, but I think this is a very good thing for Europe. Why won't much change for us? I mean, we have not become the largest player in this space by accident. I think the main reason why we are where we are is because we've always put users and protection of users at the forefront. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the areas, from the IT security to custody, what you need to do to keep users safe, that's put in MiCA, we already have it in place. Now, those things that we haven't had in place maybe 18, 24 months ago, we have been putting in place particularly over the past 12 to 18 months, because as many of you know, we've been putting huge effort into getting regulated around the world, but particularly in Europe. We're now a fully regulated entity in France, in another G7 country in Italy. There is a third country coming up very soon. You'll hear about it. So from that perspective, not much is changing. Why we think, however, this is great for the industry is because there has been a massive balkanization right now. There's no single market for crypto. So if you're a new player, if you want to actually operate at pan-European level, it's very hard, because if you want to be really, really official, you need to go through 27 or maybe de facto 15 regulatory regimes. It's really expensive, it's really slow, it requires a lot of effort. So having a truly European single market in crypto is, I think, massive advantage in Europe, because time and time we've seen it in Europe. Whenever we have not had a truly single market, Europe has lagged behind the world, whether that was in the first wave of the internet. We've never had a truly digital single market. And actually one of the reasons has been precisely this, that if you were a US startup, you were competing in a truly single market of 300 million people. In Europe, typically you have competing in 27 different markets. So anyway, we're very excited, and yeah, we're really looking forward to this.
And on top of that, it will increase the confidence from all stakeholders, being investors, industry players, and I believe it's very good because it will also attract capital investments for the industry, so it's good.
All right, so listening to you both, one might say, MiCA, great, European Commission, job well done. Europe, about to become crypto hub of the planet. Very good stuff. Would you agree with that, Alex?
I was expecting to be the one answering to that. I would agree on most of it, but the remaining 15 or 20% on which I don't agree is what's crucial. For most of what's in MiCA, but also TFR, so let's consider it's the same topic, let's say European regulation, it's of course needed. We don't want market manipulation, we don't want market abuse, we want people to be safe when they have their funds somewhere. But as Martin said, most of the platforms anticipated, and for custody, for example, for cold storage, they've already had best practices in place before the regulation was there. So this whole stuff is needed. I have, of course, a few drawbacks to put at the front. The first one is I think the timing. Europe like to regulate and then have a market because we don't want anything to happen in an unregulated environment. So one of the reasons why most platforms, most major platforms, for example, are outside of Europe is precisely because for some of them, they did not provide any fiat currency service at the beginning. That's the case, for example, for Binance. But for Coinbase, they just anticipated the regulation without being regulated at first. And so they were able to develop a very big company before they had any, let's say, official requirement to comply with. So the view that we have in Europe is not that it's bad in itself to be regulated, is that we prevent anyone from developing before they are regulated. So at the end of the day, what happens, and that was my case this morning, is that we like to think Europe as a big market, But at the end, we don't have any local players. What we have mostly is foreign players competing in our market. So from an economic point of view, from a consumer point of view, it's good because we're protected, prices are low, etc., etc. There is competition. It's standardized between 27 countries, so the costs go down. But from a political standpoint, from the Europe as a political structure that may have a will to project in the world, I think it's bad because I think what's happening is the same as what happened with the internet. And I know we respectfully disagree on that, but just to finish on that, I'm saying that in the future tense, even though if we're really pragmatic about it, it's already the case. Most European people are not using European platform because there are not so many European platforms. There are quite a few, and they have low volume. And you know that the network effect, just like for social networks, plays a huge role. You know, if Binance is the leader, if Coinbase is second or third, if Kraken, if FTX, whatever, they are going to be able to provide a better service because they have more liquidity. So their prices are down. So they will be above you, whatever you do. I'm of course simplifying stuff, but just to say that maybe we're coming, our regulation will be nice to develop already existing player, but it has unfortunately prevented us from building our own big players.
So we should hold off.
Sorry?
So we should hold off until we have the European
well,
Binance.
It's not a matter of regulation really now. It's
maybe
more
we should let Martin
sorry,
talk.
yeah.
Go ahead. I just need to react to this. Sorry, just want to very quickly react to this one. So I think on these global players, if MiCA is done right, and if the regulatory framework is right, what you want to do is you want to actually attract these players to Europe and make them as European as possible. And that's actually what's happening with Binance. I mean, if you look at us, we never had a headquarters. I mean, that was actually one of our problems, that we were never American, Chinese, Japanese, whatever. We never had a headquarter. But actually now with the very, very positive environment that we find for crypto in Europe, particularly in France, but also in other countries, we're becoming increasingly more European.
Does that mean you're considering putting your headquarters in
and
any one particular country?
So indeed, I think that that is definitely something that is not out of, you know, it's not in the realm of the impossible. Right. So we are now building a very, very strong operation in here, and I think I can imagine a situation where if things keep going the way they are going, we might eventually end up with headquarters in Europe. You know, never say never. So I think this is where, let's not just think about it, companies that were born in here, but it's also, can we attract companies from whatever it is, Dubai, Malaysia, and make them European?
Okay. Well, can I ask you to square the circle then, Simon? Because you see a lot of companies, you represent them. Do you think European companies are sort of stopped in their tracks because of regulation, or are they empowered?
So I don't think they will be stopped in their tracks. And I, broadly speaking, I think the regulation is a good idea, like providing some kind of framework all around Europe, providing also on the side some form of legitimacy to this industry, being completely regulated, being inside of the gears, I would say, of the financial system. It's good, it's positive. What we've seen is that this regulation was maybe a reaction to some excesses, a reaction to some demands also from the industry, and also a reaction from some big stablecoins projects that we won't name. So reaction, and not really something that was put forward as an initiative from Europe to create a European market, to create European initiatives. And this shows in the text because it's mainly, of course, a risk-averse, a risk-reducing regulation. And I think it's good to have that, of course. It's a good first step. But being a reaction, it's sometimes a bit too broad, sometimes misses the point. So it's a good signal sent to, I think, the world and the industry, the crypto industry, that Europe is willing to embrace crypto and make it like a regulated industry. But of course, there's a lot of further issues to be dealt with, and this is only the beginning.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about these further issues, right? So when Peter Carstens from the Commission was here in the morning, he said, we're really thinking about Web 3.0, we're really thinking about DeFi. We currently only have bad ideas. Give us some good ideas. So if I put that challenge to my panel, give them some good ideas about DeFi. Do you want to start, Simon?
Yeah, okay. So this is basically what we have now is a regulation that regulates all the centralized entities and all the issuers, all the markets, all the custodians, and all those entities that are already in the market. And what we've seen is that during the discussion around the text, those DeFi exploded, and then NFTs exploded, and then all those subjects went to the Commission and also on the working groups on the Council and before the Parliament, and everybody tried to put some ideas in there, and this is where the text became a bit messy because everybody wanted to have something in the scope. So I think the next step would be really to have a clear regulation, or at least a supervision, or at least an observation of what's happening in the very innovative aspects of crypto. What I would say the Commission and Europe should refrain from is to be overly reactive with those use cases. I think on this, France, I worked in France for a long time, so it was a very good example of what a tentative regulation could look like, because France put in place something that was optional. So there's a regulation that exists in France. Some of it is mandatory because it's very important, like anti-money laundering and everything, and the rest is optional. What MiCA did is that it basically took the ideas of the French regulation and made it all mandatory with a bit of issues. So maybe for the next step, let's think about forward-looking ideas for regulating innovative fields. DeFi, there's no centralized entity. All the centralized entity is elsewhere, dealt with differently. The governance is different. And I think something that is more like a supervisory regime than a licensing regime would really make sense for a field like DeFi. So that's a very broad idea.
Yeah. Martin?
Well, I'm not sure if it's the best idea, but I think one good idea is just chill. Take a break, slow down, let it be for now, right? I mean, this is very much still an emerging technology, whether we talk about DeFi, NFTs as well. The worst thing you can do as a regulator is try to regulate it proactively now, because that's the best way to kill the innovation. We still don't really understand what this technology is about, let alone where it's going. So I think almost by definition, if you try to really regulate it, really impose mandatory regulation, you are almost for sure going to run into unintended consequences. So I don't doubt for a second the good intentions of the Commission or anybody else in Brussels on this, but I think it's just too early. So I think the way this has been framed so far with MiCA, which is that it's largely left outside of the scope, and there will be a review in the future, I think that's probably the right approach for doing it now.
All right. Laura, I wonder how that looks from your end, because we've been talking about institutional capital flowing into crypto for I don't know how many years now. And you can say institutional capital comes with regulation, or you can say institutional capital comes with opportunity. And now you're looking at a world where DeFi stays out of scope for now, other types of issuers stay in scope. Would that make a difference to, like, say, the Keyrock business and where you see deployment of capital between the regulated and the non-regulated spaces, do you think?
Yeah, I think it would make a difference. Definitely, a business that is non-regulated doesn't attract as much as a business that is regulated. So it would be another challenge to convince institutionals to enter the market. But again, like, it's not because a regulation doesn't exist that industries doesn't have internal controls to try to minimize the risks of the business. So it's also all about a vision of a company and ethics, I would say.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, but just follow-up question. Do you think do we have strong enough ethics in our industry to hold on to without without sort of regulatory oversight? I mean, question to all of you, not for doing a spot.
No one wants to talk about ethics. This is in itself an answer. No, I think players who want to be there for the long run in general, they have kind of an ethic, and they implement, as I've said, best practices before the regulator asks for it. But as always, in anything that's innovative, we had the same with the internet, we have the same with the AI, we have the same with everything. The beginning of an industry is by definition somewhere where everything is possible, not much is regulated, and so it will attract people with low ethics. But hopefully in the midterm, well, those people precisely, because in the next few months you won't be able anymore, at least in Europe, to manipulate the market, to abuse the market, blah, blah, blah. Well, then maybe they will jump into the next chip, I hope.
All right, thanks. Slight change of topics. Another frontier of regulation that we have is NFTs. And we sort of heard in the morning, so NFT issuers, you won't have to do anything for the time being, artists, musicians, etc. NFT service providers, however, will need to get a license under MiCA and follow the rules. Is this the right approach?
No. Well, to go back to what was being said, we are approaching the NFT topic with a technological approach, which forgets that we should be trying to regulate the underlying asset. It makes no sense that if you have an artwork physical and a digital artwork, one is artwork and the other one is a financial asset. You have to regulate it as an artwork. And the same goes for the whole list of NFT and crypto as a whole. And one of the main critiques that we can make to, well, not only MiCA, but the way regulators approach the crypto topic is that they have a tendency to see crypto as a whole. And even worse, sometimes blockchain as a whole, which doesn't mean much, but they want to regulate blockchain. Who can regulate blockchain without a definition of what it is? And so you end up with a regulation that will treat the same Bitcoin, which is a currency in 2 countries in the world for the moment at least, and an item in a video game. It's not possible. I think it's absurd. I think it's going nowhere. And I think it's among the things that makes me think that some crypto brings structural changes to the way finance works. And for the moment, the regulator just applies the traditional financial system to crypto and wants to regulate it the same way the traditional system, which is centralized, works. And it works if you are a centralized provider. But for the whole rest, and Simon was talking about DeFi, about other stuff, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So there is my whole point, but I will talk to that about that a bit later maybe, but about custody. You can be your own custodian, which does not exist in the financial system. So you can't handle it the same way. I will give some details. I don't want to monopolize the word.
On the issue of NFTs, I think there's a big difference between the NFT platforms and the other GASPs that MiCA is trying to regulate, and that's something that the Commission didn't really take into consideration, is that a platform like OpenSea is operating on-chain. It's not a centralized actor that basically hides all the, well, not hides, but centralizes all the transactions inside of their own servers. And it's completely different from an operational standpoint. So I think, very, very shortly, to include NFTs, service providers in MiCA as it is today would be a mistake.
All right. I have a couple more questions, but is there any questions from the audience you want to ask? We have about 5 minutes left on the panel. Yeah, Jack. Well, just I'll repeat it. Yeah.
Jack Schickler from CoinDesk. On the question you've just been raising about whether NFTs should be regulated, the argument from some regulators is that, okay, they might be a right, a proof of ownership of an artwork or whatever, but in practice, they are traded in the same way as financial assets are, and they are subject to the same kinds of market abuse as financial assets are, things like wash trading and pump and dump schemes and so on. So the argument is, if that is the way they are used in practice, then they need to be regulated in a similar way, and who else can do that by financial regulators? What's your kind of response to that argument?
So, to me, as I've been saying before, I think that this kind of behavior already exists in the physical world. Most people who have a lot of money invest in art. It's not to have the painting hanging on their wall. It's because they think of it as a store of value and they want to sell it to someone later for more money. It's still regulated as art. The thing that crypto changes is that it makes that all liquid. You can sell it on the market. It's very easy, etc., etc. But it makes it technically liquid, but it's the same as art. I mean, something that's unique will, by definition, be less liquid than something like ERC20 or Ether or Bitcoin or currency, fiat currency, whatever. So there's a change of scale in the technical possibility. I am not quite sure that there will be such a change of scale, because the art market today is quite big also. It doesn't make it a financial market. So if you cross that border in terms of how you perceive the fact that since people sell it as a financial asset, it is uniquely and only a financial asset, then everything will start being a financial asset, because the principle of tokenization is that you can tokenize anything. So if we go down that road, then this is a financial asset. This is also a financial asset because I can sell it online on a platform. And I think it's absurd to go that way. So maybe the right answer is not necessarily to say it's never a financial asset, but I'm saying that, as Simon was talking about NFT, I think to put NFT into MiCA as such today, I think it's a mistake. But you know, I'm myself not providing an answer, which is frustrating probably for you, but I'm saying it's a mistake to regulate it at that point.
Just to complete very quickly, if the NFT project is actually conducting a criminal activity, like you know, defrauding investors and these kind of things, you already have regulation for that.
All right. Thanks, guys. Any other questions from the audience? Yeah.
Thank you very much to all the panelists. So my question is, if you have right now a project that's, like you mentioned, kind of NFT based, that's not financial per se, what suggestion would you give to a startup that, you know, that regulation is very uncertain? You're investing a lot of time and resources to that project. Do you have any suggestions for early startups on that?
All right. Compliance advice, anyone?
This is not a legal advice. Disclaimer, I'm not a lawyer. But I think, you know, when it comes to NFTs, projects like this, right now I probably wouldn't stress about it too much. Again, I think even MiCA, I mean, the timelines on MiCA are almost absurd, you know, when this is going to come into actual force, right? We're trying to regulate something which is super fast moving, and we created a regulation 2 years ago, and it's going to come into force 3 years from now. So I think because NFTs are still so far away from the horizon, I just probably wouldn't worry about it.
Alex?
Yeah, the addition to the answer would be that, I don't know, I don't want to quote them, but I will. Sorare didn't bother about that. You know, they still made a unicorn. So now the balance of power is, you know, it's more balanced because now that you have a unicorn based on the NFT, you can't just plainly say you are just an outlaw. So again, not legal advice. I'm not a lawyer or anything, but this is something that you have to bear in mind. But as an entrepreneur, you have, I mean, by default, you have to like risk. So if you're not willing to take any risks, then wait for the regulation. But the problem is that when the regulation is here, it's very likely that someone else will have had the same idea and like the risk. So.
Yes, just one last piece of advice. MiCA is finalized in the next few weeks. Just have a look at it. You never know.
And if I might add one thing, we sometimes tend to conflate what we talk about. Like, you know, Alex was saying, everything's blockchain, everything's a store of value, everything needs a license. if you're issuing an NFT, I think there's a very strong signal from policymakers that even before the text is finalized, you're not in scope. So the intention is not to put artists in scope of financial services regulation. But if you're providing services, then maybe you're well advised to read the law, because indeed, as Martin says, it may come into a force into a couple of years' time, but you might want to build your business, or you might want to talk to your investors with the idea that what will happen to you in a couple of years' time, right? So it's not all doom and gloom and don't pack for El Salvador, right? Stay in Europe. Any other question? Yes, Mark.
Thank you very much. So, Mark Taverner, I wonder if the panel could give us some thoughts on sustainability, because I believe that's a topic that's sitting on the fringes of MiCA, and I wonder what your thoughts are as we collide or risk colliding towards ESG and the wonderful situation that we have in the markets with that.
Thanks, Mark.
So I actually came to crypto full-time from climate tech. So I do have some strong opinions on this one. I think it's the responsibility of the industry to clean up the act. Clearly, you know, we're now living in an era where it's just not acceptable to have industries with a massive, let alone growing, carbon footprint. Now, forcing companies to do that or that technology through regulation, that's definitely not the right way of doing it. But I think I see very, very strong push also internally, even within Binance, to make sure that we are not only sort of carbon neutral, but that we are actually, you know, a company that's advancing some of these technologies. I mean, I've seen, you know, there's so many blockchain and crypto projects that have been around for so many years, you know, trying to actually help decarbonization. I don't think anybody has yet figured out how you can really, really use blockchain massively and effectively to decarbonize the broader economy. Clearly, I think we need to start with our own industry. I mean, this move to the proof of work it's one example of a technological solution. But yeah, I think this is clearly something we will absolutely need to address, and I think industry is looking at it.
But we don't need a regulatory stick to do it, I guess.
I don't think we do.
Would the rest of you agree?
No, I would respectfully but strongly disagree.
Oh, it's such a joy having you in panels, Alex.
No, I respect everyone, because I think this topic about the proof of work is very hypocritical, because the debate around the energy usage of Bitcoin is not a debate about energy usage, because if it was, then we would be all be down the street because, you know, tumble dryers in the US consume more than the Bitcoin network, and the Christmas decorations consume more than the Bitcoin network, but no one cares about that. So that's not really a debate about energy use. It's a debate about understanding the utility of the thing that uses energy. And some people have suggested that, you know, you could change a line of code and then, you know, you would have a carbon impact reduced by 90%. But as Martin said, we haven't figured it out. So you can take away the engine of a car and I assure you it's going to consume less, but it's not moving. So it's useless in the end. So it's the same here. We have something that's working at scale. Sebastian, who may be still here, had a point earlier this afternoon to say that he, for example, is only using green energy, surplus, extra capacity, and so on, because, well, I'm not going to make again this argumentation, I wouldn't have the time. So this whole debate is hypocrite, because it's mostly made by people who don't understand the use of crypto, and especially Bitcoin. But for the moment, from the social point of view, it's financial inclusion. From the governance point of view, it's decentralization. From the economic, environmental point of view, as we said, Sebastian has made the point. So we can have a debate, but having a plain statement that says proof of work is bad, it's going to be bad from Europe, is one, not feasible, and two, very harsh and very detrimental to the ecosystem in Europe.
Okay, cool. All right, we have 1 minute left. I'm very keen to ask you one question, and it's to all of you, so take your turn. There is at least two important negotiations left on AML and on MiCA, which is the time when maybe one each, maybe more, let's see. But if you can make one amendment to either text and you have the receptive ear of the European regulators, what would your amendment be, Laura?
Very quick because there's few seconds left, but for me it would be the grandfathering clause, so enabling business that are already regulated to have a transition period towards MiCA and not to have to go through the authorization process.
All right, thanks. Simon?
Would be mainly clarification of the scope on DeFi, NFTs, and stablecoins.
Thanks.
For me, make it passportable day one. I mean, frankly, waiting 18 months plus another 2 years to have it de facto passportable, it's absurd.
All right, last but not least?
Last but not least, for me, it would be everything related to unhosted wallet, because I think the slope that it's taking is frightening from a societal point of view because of the underlying assumption behind it, which is that anyone who holds their own currency is suspect.
All right.
And I think it's frightening.
Okay, and on that, that's a wrap. Thank you, guys.